Welcome back to this edition of the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Raymond Wu. And this final segment, we're going to continue our discussion with Professor Nora of the National Taiwan University. And this time we're going to talk about the most important part, possibly, of any family is the future of the children. You know, like we discussed in the earlier segment, for any family to make a big decision, to emigrate to a foreign country, of course, it will involve, what are the benefits, what are the attractions for the, for the kids, for the children, whether they're going to get a better education, whether they're going to be able to make, good friends, and then being able to assimilate to the new environment. And I want to ask you, Professor Chiang, in your, continuing research on this subject, what are the problems? In addition to the obvious ones like, making new friends, breaking the language barrier, what are the other problems that you found that are happening with these immigrants' children in terms of their assimilation process?
Yeah, I hope that the children realize that the parents really do make some sacrifices in the decision to immigrate.
Most definitely.
Because a lot of them mention getting education for the children as one of the major reasons.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I find that the children like it in Australia or in Canada. Yes. So, and they are quite happy with school there, and they did somehow compare the differences between Taiwan education and their experience in Canada, because I also spoke to the younger generation, or in theoretical terms we call them the 1.5 generation.
Yes.
That is those people who moved when they were very young with their parents. They did not want to miss, they don't miss the so-called stuffed duck, 填鸭式 education.
Yeah, in Taiwan mostly.
Meeting a very harsh teacher once in a while, and I guess they're quite happy. They know that they should work hard. In the meantime, when they first went abroad, they did find some problem with English.
Yes.
But they get used to it about half a year.
Okay, 6 months.
Yeah, about 6 months they get into. But they do find that it's not so easy to make friends with other racial groups. Not necessarily the white Canadian or white Australian, but people who are from other continents. And people who speak better English would have the advantage. And among themselves, they easily identify people who kind of look like themselves, such as people from Hong Kong or
from China, or from other parts of Asia.
Right, and so make friends in that area. And as for their parents, I guess the parents also expect them to be observing these traditional values of filial piety. So some of the children did mention that they could not meet the expectation of the parents, like getting back home early, reporting to their parents where they go each day, what kind of friends they bring over, where they go to meet their friends and sleep over, that is stay overnight in the young friend's home. So their parents always want them to be very careful in the friends they make, and they wonder why the other parents do not demand this of them. And then they also find that the parents have difficulty in English, so they were asked to perform errands for their parents, and they mentioned this. And I find this true of Hong Kong school children. I find from the literature that they try to help their parents with English. This added responsibility is expected of them. Of course, once in a while, they wonder if they want to be the Asian model. That is, to be good in school. Because nowadays people know that the Asians do well in school. So they got to work very hard. So they do have stress.
But there are some
they do have stress due to these demands. And at first they find that they're racially different, probably a cultural shock at first. And then they try to mingle with either Canadian or the Australian or the New Zealanders, whoever were there before them, but sometimes there are difficulty. So there is a degree of segregation as a result.
Okay, that was probably something inevitable. But what do you think the families are asking them, to do with their spare time? Do they want them to continue studying Chinese, for example, or
definitely.
making more commitments into other vocational or hobbies or training?
Yeah, actually, I forgot to ask what are the pastimes of these young people.
Yes. Or in Canada, do they play hockey and things, or do they assimilate that fast?
Well, they go to church.
Yes.
Like
that
their
is
parents,
one,
in the
one
weekend,
thing, yes.
they go to the weekend Chinese school.
Yes.
And the parents expect them to speak Chinese besides English.
Yes.
And occasionally, whenever there's a break, they are sent back to Taiwan.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Their parents are worried that Taiwan is so much more complex,
yes.
Than Australia or Canada. They
relatively speaking, it's
yes,
a lot
they,
more
they feel that
yes.
Taiwan is harder
yeah.
to get along, and they're afraid that their children would not be as street smart
That's right.
as the local Taiwanese.
But it's very interesting that you brought up this notion of the 1.5 generation. Let me ask you that. I mean, in the interviews that you've done with the young immigrants' children, do they find themselves more Taiwanese, or do they identify themselves more with the host country, or is it going to be half and half, or 40-60% breakdown?
I think this is a very difficult question for anyone to answer. I asked anyway.
Okay.
Most of them say that they have a dual identity.
Okay.
They're both Taiwanese and Australia.
Okay.
But it's hard to really pin down to the proportion. And I was amazed at a few of them who, when they were very young, like 4 years old, this young lady was saying that I am Australian.
Really?
Yes.
And
she felt that she is Australian.
Okay.
Yeah, full Australia and no Taiwanese. And
really?
she doesn't want to hear about anything about Taiwan, politics and all that.
Is that because of her own choosing, or is it because her parents want her to?
I think it's her own choice. She mingles so well with her friends.
Okay.
So this probably is the minority, but the majority will be the dual identity.
Okay.
And quite a few say that they are global citizens. They even say the word 国际人, 世界人, to qualify themselves.
Yes, they have an international personality. Yes.
Yes,
yeah.
they feel.
Yeah.
But come to think about it, is it important?
Yeah.
I know you raise a very important issue, but after all these studies, when I have these boxes for people to check, who are you? Is it important who we are? Because the world is really getting smaller and smaller.
Of course.
Right.
It's getting flatter.
Right. So getting fatter too.
Yes.
So I'm happy that they are finding being abroad, having the opportunity of receiving a global education. So whether they come back to Taiwan or not, they can survive quite well with this new perspective in their life. But personally speaking, I would like them to come back to Taiwan because they are the good human resources who are bicultural and bilingual.
Yeah, and also more international perspective.
Yes,
in the way of approaching
I
things.
really would like to tell the government that if we tap on these resources of bilingual, bicultural, and having an international perspective, that would be good for Taiwan.
Of course, making Taiwan more internationally visible.
Yes,
competitive in the process.
Right.
And one other thing that's probably very important regarding these children is the fact that you mentioned that maybe their parents wanted to make yearly visit back to Taiwan, or going to, for example, Chinese language school on Sundays and holidays. So make sure that the Taiwanese connection or Taiwanese roots are not completely severed. Is that still the case today with most of these immigrant families? Do they still stress that as a very important aspect of their new life in the new host country?
I guess so, because it's only a matter of like 8 or 10 years that I have come across, and I don't think cultural traits disappear that fast.
Okay.
And well, think of the traffic
Yes.
You know, they probably pay a lot for the airfare.
Yeah.
And think of the traffic flow. I think a lot
Back
of
and
it
forth.
is due to immigrants.
Yes.
And even myself, as a researcher, sometimes it's very hard to get tickets
Yes.
to go to Australia in the
Yes.
high season.
Yeah.
And the high season when they come back for the Chinese New Year, for example, to visit the older parents.
Yeah.
There's a lot of traffic.
Yes.
So I assume that the parents are still sending the children back home to learn the Chinese culture in
Maybe
Taiwan.
we have about 30 seconds left. Professor Chiang, in your research and your own personal experience, what would you tell the audience who are watching our program today if they are thinking of moving overseas with their whole family? What are the things that they should be cautioned about?
Oh, you're asking the question I ask immigrants. And they have a lot to say.
Yes.
I guess they say, usually, bring your whole family.
Yes.
They always, even though these people who are living with kids, like 单亲妈妈, they always say, bring your whole family. Do not separate the family.
Yeah.
Split household is really not good.
Yes. So I suppose one thing that will never go out of style is the emphasis on family unity and family values. And today we're very, very happy and delighted to have the pleasure of having Professor Nora Chiang to our program and talk about this very important issue of the Taiwanese and Chinese immigrants and their adaptation process all over the world. Thank you, Professor Chiang. In the future, we hope we'll get a chance to have you back to the program again. And thank you for watching this edition of the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Raymond Wu. I'll see you next time on MacroView Television.